Okay, so this is just a relatively short little post discussing a little issue of contention, like a bit of headcanon, that I had come across the other night, rewatching Bridal Gossip with some friends of mine. One of them's a brony, and she had already seen it, and the other one was watching it for the first time. So yeah, this is the Evil Enchantress episode, where they introduce Zecora. Basically, the issue of contention came up when she said that Zebrani, as I've heard it referred to in fanon, it doesn't have a canonical name yet. So I've heard Zebrica or Zebraka or Zebrani. I'm going to call it Zebrani because that's the first time. When I heard it referred to for the first time, that's what they called it. So she said that Zebrani was some region inside of Equestria that, you know, the Ponyvillians just didn't happen to know about. And she, quote-unquote, knew this, given the fact that Zecora has a cutie mark. That has to do with the way that her and my headcanon is sort of set up. As to why her having a cutie mark or not is actually pertinent to her origin. But I'll come back to it. Like, I'll come back to where Zecora is actually from, but I'm going to talk about cutie marks for a second because it might have some bearing as to her actual beginnings, you know, or not. Obviously, it's headcanon, but bear with me for a sec, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so, I mean, she has a cutie mark, or what certainly appears to be one. However, we have never heard the story of its formation, which is really too bad because Zecora is kind of an interesting character. However, even if she told us something about the story, it wouldn't necessarily be corroborated by any pony whom we know. So, sorry, the reason that the cutie mark is important is that we kind of speculated that cutie marks might be at least less common in other parts of the world, or perhaps even exclusive to Equestria because of magic that's either just sort of geographically present or even actively maintained by Luna or Tia there in order to sort of show ponies the way that when they discover their talent, there's this sort of fountain of magic and causes this symbol to appear to sort of let them know that they've found it, right? Reached this conclusion a little bit after reading this comic, and that it's been posted for a while. It's Hasbro licensed, so it's sort of semi-canonical. It was called No Way Too Far. I think it was translated out of German, but I'm not sure. Basically, I think one or two ponies get sick, or they have some affliction, and then barley is part of the remedy, but it doesn't grow in Equestria. That is, Twilight looks it up, how to solve this, and they need to go outside of Equestria. So this would actually, I think, be the first time, if you count these comics as canon, that we've seen any of the main six leave Equestria. The second time would be in Dragon Quest. But I want to say that they go east in Dragon Quest, or something like that. They don't go the same direction, I'm under the impression. So Twilight looks it up, and then somewhere beyond the Everfree Forest, meaning based off of the map that Smith shows us in Family Appreciation Day, the Everfree Forest must function as a border of some sort, at least in one area, probably southwards somewhere, southeast or southwest, I would surmise, because straight south would be like the heart of the Everfree, and I'm not sure it would make tremendous amounts of sense if they just went straight through it just to get some barley. They meet a Big Mac recolor, basically, and then he just sort of gives them some barley, and then they're able to just turn back around and head back into Equestria, and then they sort of mix up the cure and then the remedy, and then everything's fine, of course. So the question is Zecora from inside of Equestria? I honestly thought for a long time that it would be a separate continent or a region of a separate continent, maybe like a large island or something that is not geographically contiguous with Equestria. In other words, it's not touching Equestria and it's not inside of Equestria. There's some other region, either landmass or body of water, that lies between the border of Equestria and the beginning of Zebrani, wherever that is. I guess it's possible that Zebrani would be some sort of far-flung separate territory of the Solar Empire, if you maintain that headcanon. And that would make sense, and I guess there could be, some pony there to maintain that same magic that is kept in Equestria to allow the facilitation of the appearance of cutie marks. Other explanations would be that she just That is, if cutiemarks are less common but still happen outside of Equestria, then maybe she got it before Hoof and was therefore allowed into Equestria. Because, if you have a cutiemark, it means you have a place in life, you have a talent, which is useful, hopefully. And, you're not just going to cause a bunch of chaos because you don't know who you are. She could have gotten it on arrival, I suppose, if she just arrived from Zebrani, wherever that is, and entered the borders of Equestria. Could have just appeared. That is, if she'd already practiced these natural magics and acquired some of this sort of arcane knowledge that she shares a little bit with Twilight. Or could actually be a tattoo, maybe meant to deceive the authorities and allow her into the country. Or perhaps just put ponies at ease, because adult blank flanks are we don't see them canonically. There are a number of OCs who are that. Also, all of the residents of Sunnytown are that. With the tattoo theory, it could also be just, a ritual done, say, in Zebrani, because they don't otherwise get symbols there. That is, there's no magical way for them to just have them to represent their talents. So they just, kind of when they come of age, they would just manually tattoo a symbol, which will represent whatever their talent is. That could also be. The other theory that I have would include a little bit of the sort of the grimdarkery headcanon or fanon that exists out there. So I don't know if you're not in the mood for any of that. It's not too bad, but if you're not in the mood for that, then hit the stop button now. Some folks will say that zebras are basically a minority which is not respected or treated highly inequitably, or as much as highly inequitably, or even so much to the point that there was some attempted sort of genocide or cleansing at some point against the zebras. Obviously, we don't know. Not much of this is addressed canonically. All we know is that they're rare or uncommon enough that no pony knows who they are or what they are. Yeah, they didn't know what a zebra was. Twilight was the only one who knew what a zebra was, so obviously one doesn't see them all the time. That would sort of serve to explain a few things. I wouldn't imagine that kind of thing would proceed under Celestia, though. So obviously Zecora comes from a somewhat stable community because she has, her own language and her own cultural symbols and so on. That means, she's not kind of a last of her kind sort of character, really. Not necessarily. But it may be that there was some tragedy that happened over in her village in Zebrani, and that's why, she fled to Equestria. But she doesn't seem that grim of a character. She seemed relatively happy to be living in the Everfree Forest, next to Ponyville. So I wasn't struck that something horrible had gone down, because she seemed very well adjusted, and she wasn't sadly reminiscent of when she was explaining the masks that are by the door. These are the last relics of, what zebra kind, and I am. But who knows? Maybe she just hides it well. So, proceeding off of the theory that zebras are kind of a forcibly oppressed minority, it is possible that they are, or were, at some point, branded or given some kind of a magical seal in order to identify them as dissidents, as, heretics, untouchables, I don't know. It's not entirely clear, but if you want to, kind of view Equestria as like a big crap sack, you could, it would be believable that the zebras have to wear, an R-band, essentially, which identifies them. So a lot of this is stated on the premise that cutiemarks are something special to Equestria. Now, I know everybody doesn't believe that. If you have any evidence to the contrary, that is, ponies outside of Equestria have cutiemarks and it's a very common occurrence, totally say that. Any, of these semi-canonical materials like foreign comics or what have you, or things that Faust has said, that would be good to know. If there's any fan fiction that just seems to explain it all clearly, totally give us enough information so that we can go and look at it and, poke any holes in it that we can find or what have you. Or if you've just sort of stolen something from a fan fiction and you don't want anybody to read it, then I guess that's fine too. It's not very nice, but But yeah, so post your comments below because I'm really curious and I want to know what other folks have to say about this. And I've just been wondering about it for the past, day. So definitely enlighten me if you can. Yeah, so where is Zebrani? Is it geographically contiguous with Equestria? Is it a part of Equestria or a territory? Or is it, across the water somewhere or what have you? If anyone's done an analysis of the globe that Spike tries to steal out of Twilight's library, and you've been able to place Equestria somewhere on that globe, then go ahead and tell us. If you guys have any maps which make it all make sense, then certainly mention them. We know that Cloudsdale is sort of up over Ponyville most of the time, even though I would imagine that it has to move for the whole tornado thing to happen. It would move around to wherever the body of water is that they're using to make clouds. But other than that, Cloudsdale is over. It's just over Ponyville most of the time. That's where it stays. Yeah, and then we know that Canterlot is north of Ponyville. So, one more time, where is Zebrani? That is, where does Zecora come from? Is it a territory of Equestria? Is it next to Equestria? Does it border it? Or is there some vast amount of space or some moderate amount of space, either landmass or a body of water, which separates them? What is the relationship between, ponies, unicorns, zebras, pegasi, historically, in your own headcanon, blah, blah. And what is Zecora doing in Equestria? Why is she there, all alone? Seems like almost, not quite a fish out of water. Obviously, she's relatively in her element, but, I don't know, a fish without a school, still in water, I guess. Yeah, let us know.